Hello, everyone. My name is Rachma Ismail. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will also be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, drop a 1 in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a 2 in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is someone who did climb the corporate ladder, Rachma Ismail, and who's also the portfolio manager at Sanlam Investments and deputy chairperson of ABSIP, Young Professional nationally. Rachma, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, always. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to chat about my career journey, ABSIP, and the current projects that I'm working on. So I look forward to the session.
Awesome. So let's just jump straight into questions. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Rachma Ismail?
Okay, so Rachma Ismail, born and raised in Mitchells Plain. I completed my BCom general degree and then followed by my honors in finance at the University of the Western Cape in 2010. I started my first job at Sanlam Investments in 2011, straight from university. Sanlam Investments is one of the largest asset managers and leading financial services company in South Africa.
And outside of work?
Outside of work, I belong to ABSIP, the Association for Black Securities and Investment Professionals. I also have a passion project, but I'll tell you guys a bit more about that later on, where I'm kind of a quasi-recruitment specialist, but I'll tell you guys about that later on.
Okay. Quick and short. So, congratulations. I see you got a promotion last year to portfolio manager.
Thank you. So I've been in the industry as a credit analyst for about over 9 years, and then an opportunity arose for me to move into the Sanlam Investments private debt space, where I'm now a portfolio manager in the private debt space, and we basically have a mandate or portfolio of 2.2 billion, and that 2.2 billion is 5 funds, and we provide funding to small, medium enterprises that can't access the debt capital market space.
So talk to us about your progression from trainee credit analyst to portfolio manager. How did you do it, and how would you advise others to do it?
So my journey has been challenging and tough as well, because coming straight from university, you're studying BCom, you're thinking you know what you're doing. You end up in a corporate environment, financial services, and you're like, okay, because I remember distinctly I applied for a junior credit analyst role, and that was my first role into the financial services industry. I knew of Sanlam, and I knew that Sanlam sold insurance, but I did not know that Sanlam Investments existed. This was like 10, 11 years ago. So now you end up entering this industry, you young Black female, straight from university. It's a different environment. Things are fast-paced. You get there, you see you the youngest person in your team, person of color. It's challenging. So I ended up applying for this role, junior credit analyst, not knowing what the role was about. I Googled what the company was about, but then I somehow came across a set of financials, because the first business unit I reported to was Sanlam Capital Markets. So I found their financial statements, and at the time, about 11 years ago, they made a loss. So one of the questions I asked in the interview was, why are you guys making a loss? But not knowing at the time that obviously this is a big corporate or business unit, and then within the business unit, you get different roles. So the role that I actually applied for wasn't the finance role, it's more analysis role. So the person that interviewed me wasn't close to the finance team. So obviously they couldn't answer that. But that was also one of the questions that I think nailed the interview and got me the job. So fast forward, was a junior credit analyst and then worked my way into a normal analyst. A few years later, I became a senior credit analyst. And then last year, after 10 years, an opportunity arose for me to become a portfolio manager.
Okay. And like you mentioned, you came straight out of varsity and join so some people are doing a BCom general, some people are doing, I mean, you get people, engineers who join for those who are interested in joining the financial services sector, what would you be your advice to them on the best way to get into the industry?
So my best advice would be, if you're completing your BCom and you have an opportunity to do your honors, complete your honors, because nowadays in financial services, like I was lucky to get into Sanlam Investments just with my honors. If I look at my colleagues and my peers, most of them have CFA, most of them are CA. So if you have an opportunity, and I know that it's very difficult sometimes, because I mean, I had that dilemma: do I finish my degree, get a job, and then do my honors part-time, or do I pursue my honors and complete my honors? But I'm actually fortunate and grateful that I actually completed my honors, because that actually gave me a stepping stone into getting straight into financial services. Nowadays, it's very difficult. I'm not sure if I mentioned as well, I'm also currently pursuing my master's in accounting, specializing financial reporting, analysis, and governance at UCT. So you need to be a constant learner. So the advice I can do is, I know that a lot of people, my view is, having a degree and all these qualifications, obviously just a piece of paper, but it actually gives you a foot into the company, and then you obviously have to then prove yourself.
Foot in the door, basically. No, I
foot
hear
in the
you.
door. And it's become very, very competitive with CFA, with MBA, with becoming chartered accountants. Yeah.
I notice a lot of people try to get, like, they struggle to get in, and then they end up in like performance analysis as opposed to like equity analysis or company analysis, and they get stuck there. Which is is that still the case?
It actually is still the case. And I mean, I had a friend that was in client services who also had honors in finance and investments, but she was in a client services role. I was fortunate enough to get straight into an analytical role. But then what she did was, then she did CFA, passed the 3 levels of CFA, and now she's in an analyst role.
So she got there in the end. Okay. So for those who are in performance analysis.
For those that, So most people want to become analysts. Most people want to become portfolio managers. But there's also a lot of people that also like the operational side of things. They want to do strategy. They don't necessarily want to be analysts. So there is basically a role for everybody in the financial services industry. You just need to find your niche, or what you're passionate about. If you enjoy analyzing the stock market, you can use the role as an analyst to your advantage in terms of you being a normal employee, and then also getting access to information, reading money web articles and things, and you can use that information then to also buy shares.
Okay, now that makes a lot of sense. You've stayed in one organization your whole career. That's happening less and less. I normally tell people to be open to trying new things in order to grow their careers. Were you able to try new things within your organization? And what advice do you have for those who maybe feel stuck in their position?
So for me, I must say it was challenging in the beginning. But what I did was, as a junior credit analyst, I then started to network within the business. So I started in 2011. 2013, I created the Sanlam Investments Young Professional Platform. This is a platform where young professionals get together, they interact, they synergize, they collaborate, they share ideas. Because what I noticed when I started in 2011, like I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of young professionals in the business. There wasn't a lot of people of color. There wasn't a lot of females. It's very difficult if you're young and going up to somebody in a different business unit that's way older than you. They're not necessarily, I won't say they're not willing to help you, but it takes longer for them to assist you. Whereas if I'm Rachma, I'm in client services, and another young professional is an equity analyst. But because we connected over coffee and we spoke about where we came from, what studies we're busy with, if I email this person in the equities team, they're going to respond to me very, very quickly compared to me waiting 2 to 3 days. So my advice would be, network when you get to the company, find mentors that will be able to share their journeys with you. So for me, it was very difficult. I mean, when I joined, everybody knows that Sanlam was previously predominantly white owned. But when I got there, I managed to network with people that come from the same background as me. And then you build that relationships, but then you also need to realize just because it was difficult for you when you got into the company doesn't necessarily mean that you need to make it more difficult for other young people coming in. Hence me starting the Young Professional Network, where young professionals could network and collaborate with each other.
For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So if you've got any questions for Rachma, please add them to the comment section now, and we'll answer them just to make sure that we don't miss them. Let's talk a little bit debt markets and the economy. So what's your opinion on the current state of the South African economy? Because I know lots of people are looking for opportunities overseas or working for international companies remotely, and I've heard that a lot of international companies are poaching South Africans this is in asset management, in finance, in accounting. What's your experience of that?
So my experience is like, for me, I'm born, raised South African, so I'm always pro-South African. There's always opportunities in South Africa. We have a beautiful country that we're living in. I mean, I saw some research, I think it was last week sometime, where they were saying that there's a lot of flows coming into South Africa because it's one of the top emerging market countries now to invest in again. I know that a lot of people leave for their reasons, but what I tend to see is I have a few friends that moved overseas, that went and did the articles and then secondment and things. After 5-10 years, they end up coming back to South Africa. So you need to do, my advice is do what's best for you. And then there's always opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities in the entrepreneurship space in South Africa. I mean, our asset management industry, our financial services industry is one of the best known industries as well, in terms of governance, in terms of how it's run, and the individuals that are working in this industry.
Okay, that gives us a good idea. Let's switch a little bit to ABSIP. For those who don't know about the organization, can you give us a brief introduction?
So basically, in a nutshell, ABSIP is the Association for Investment Professionals. I'll tell you 1 second, just give me a second. So ABSIP was founded in 1995. It was founded because they saw that there was a lack of transformation in the financial services industry. Since then, ABSIP has grown. We have so many followers and members throughout South Africa and across the globe. Within ABSIP, you have 3 different platforms. We have the student chapter. Student chapter caters for the students at the university. So you have student chapters at UCT, UWC, Stellenbosch University, University of Pretoria. You have the Women in Focus platform as well, that focuses on the women development within South Africa, within the ABSIP space. Then you also have the Young Professional platform, and that's a platform where I'm involved in, and I've been involved with the Young Professional platform for over 5 years. So how I joined ABSIP Young Professionals was I saw an advert at the time. They were looking to send 2 young professionals to the States on an exchange program. So this exchange program was at Fordham University, where you got an opportunity to do an advanced certificate in emerging markets and country risk analysis. You spent 6 weeks in the States. We did 2 modules, and then you completed the program 2 months later at the University of Pretoria, and you did 1 module. So because I was granted that opportunity, I attended the ABSIP events. I was a member, but I wasn't really active with ABSIP. Because I got that opportunity, I went to the States, I came back, and I'm like, okay, Rachma, you got this great opportunity from ABSIP. Now it's your time to give back. Then I joined the Young Professional platform, where we run a lot of initiatives. There's the Fordham Exchange program. We're sending 2 young professionals to the States now in May to complete the same program. We have a mentorship pilot program. There's a lot of opportunities within the young professional space, but ABSIP as a whole, if you'd like to know more information about ABSIP, you guys can you guys can Google absipconnect.com, and I can leave the details in the chat later on as well. But it's a very good organization, also organization where you can connect with your fellow peers. Because I mean, what I've done as part of ABSIP as well, I've connected with a lot of people that have become my friends over the past few years. And they're all at different companies, that Argon, that Future Growth, that 91. And that is how you build your network as well. And you become friends with people that you meet at ABSIP events. I mean, I met you always also at one of the ABSIP events.
I mean, we met once before, and I noticed the work that you and your team were doing from afar. But what are your thoughts on where the industry is currently in terms of transformation, taking into account what you mentioned that it started in 1995?
I think we've come a long way. There's still a lot that needs to be done. We need people, young professionals, to take up opportunities on these platforms to steer change, and specifically also not just being on these platforms, but also taking that inside in the companies that you're working in. So I think we've done great, but there is still more work that needs to be done.
And what are you currently busy with at ABSIP Young Professionals?
So what we're currently busy with, so I am part of the learning and development pillar. We busy with master classes that we're setting up. In the past, we've done collaborations with the CISA, we've done collaborations with Scenario Securities. So we basically working on that so that we can bed that down. We've just bedded down the Fordham program. So we're sending the two young professionals to the States in May, and they'll come back in July, and they'll provide an update on the program and the experience. We're also bedding down the mentorship pilot program as well.
Okay, so there's lots happening in the background.
There's lots happening in the background. We also have the another pillar that my colleagues are part of is the events pillar. We plan to have an opening event sometime, was supposed to be sometime at the end of April, that has been pushed out to May. But there's a lot of things that we're busy with on the ABSIP front.
Something we can attend, I can also attend. That will be interesting to see.
And it's hopefully going to be in person. The first opening event is going to be in Cape Town.
Oh, amazing.
So I'll send you the invite, definitely.
Brilliant. And this is one question I like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
My younger self, I would say, is learn as much as you can when you can, and read as much. Because I remember when I was a student, I mean, most people that studied at UWC, Professor Gould was our finance lecturer. And he would tell us, you guys need to read the news, you guys need to read the news. And I, for one, never listened. I would literally just read the news highlights and things when, just before, like we had a test in the evening, the whole day I'll read what's happening in the world or what's happening on MoneyWeb or what's happening in South African companies. That's one of the advice I would give to my younger self is read, like get yourself into the habit of reading the news. You'll see that when you end up in financial services, you can't not miss what's happening in the industry. So I literally have MoneyWeb open every day just to scan through which companies have uploaded SENS announcements or made any announcements. So that's the advice I would give to my younger self, is to have started reading early on.
I always find it interesting in varsity, you just read the stuff to learn it and then you forget about it. Now
you forget about it.
You read it because you want to, and you have to, but you also want to, and that's the only way to get ahead. So that's
exactly. Because that's basically going to give you a competitive edge as well.
100%. Doesn't look like there's any questions that have come through, so it must be that you've answered all the questions as you come along. If there are any questions that anybody still wants to put in, please feel free to put them in now. But do you have any last few words or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know? Something about, I know you mentioned your passion project earlier, so let's hear about that as well.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that as a side hustle, I send out vacancies to about 800 people that I have on a distribution list. I send these vacancies out once a week. People that are on my distribution list are people that I studied with, people that I met in the bus while commuting to work a few years ago, people that would recommend their cousins or friends that are in the industry looking for vacancies. How do I get the vacancies? Once a week, I would get vacancies from LinkedIn. I'll save it in a folder. I'll get vacancies from friends in the industry that are working at different companies that would send it to me. I'll also get vacancies from recruiters. So then what I do is once a week, every Monday, I send a list of vacancies to the distribution list. If you guys are interested or looking to change roles, looking for other opportunities, you guys can drop me your email address. I can add you to my distribution list, and then you'll weekly also get vacancies. Most of the vacancies are financial services, but here and there, I'll get, like last week, I got a request from somebody that said they looking for an interior designer role. And then what I did was I found some roles, and then I also included that in the distribution that I sent out. And then maybe just to end off, like lasting words, I would say that a lot of people say success is very important, but people don't really understand what success is attributable to. So I'm not sure if you guys saw, only 2% of success is attributable to ability. 6% is knowledge, but your attitude is 92%, and that is what counts, and that is what's going to get you through this industry and take you through the journey that you're going to embark on. Always believe in yourself. Don't ever doubt yourself. A lot of people also place a lot of emphasis on IQ. IQ is important, but you must remember that that must be aligned with EQ. So you don't really need to be a genius. EQ, IQ must be aligned. That's the only way you're going to get through the financial services industry. Having EQ, where you come from doesn't define you. Where you study doesn't matter. We all have this perception that we're not good enough and that they won't choose you for a specific role. I applied for a junior credit analyst role 11 years ago, not knowing that I was going to be chosen to become a junior credit analyst. They chose me. And then always remember to stay humble. That's my parting words. I'm not sure if there's any questions.
No, nothing has come through yet. I think you've answered all the questions, but I think that's a great way to end. I notice people are starting to put their email in the chat, so you might have a couple of people to add your distribution. You don't have to look at it now. You can look at it.
I'll look at it later.
Later, that should be
I'll definitely add you guys, and then you guys will receive weekly vacancies. You can always also recommend, if the vacancies don't speak to you, forward the vacancies on to other young professionals. Because what I realized while I was studying, or when I joined the industry, is I didn't have a structured network. And the only way I managed to find out about other opportunities within the business that I'm working at is by asking questions. And then I also saw that there's a need. There's a lot of people that also don't know how to go about applying for roles, hence me starting this initiative to send out vacancies on a weekly basis.
Amazing. I think that's a great way to end. A reminder to everyone that the show has been live on YouTube and will be available on the podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so that you get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Rachma, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure, Wes. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for you. Keep on doing what you're doing. This is great. This is definitely helping other young professionals. And then let me know if you need other speakers.
Definitely. Always do. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat.